So there are various ways of evaluating a policy change. You know, the truth is that evaluation has been something that Indigenous people have been doing for a long time. And policy is just another word for an agreed upon way of doing things. And so in that way, you know, people have been doing that kind of thing for a long time. So the first thing would be to look at whether certain milestones are being achieved in eventually having a policy put into place. And those milestones are things that can be written down in an action plan. And then when and if the actual policy is passed, just having something that's documented in writing would indicate that it actually passed. And then there might be ways that you want to look at how that particular policy has impacted people. And maybe one of the ways that you measure that is looking at, say, the population that it has impacted. For instance, if you have a new lactation policy in your organization, then all of your employees will have that improved benefit of spaces in which they can pump milk or breastfeed. Everybody has access to that, and families also benefit. So there's all kinds of ways of being able to measure that. You know, system changes are kind of another angle on the same concept that it's an agreed upon way of doing something. Let's just take, for instance, an agreed upon way of doing a health fair where you would be screening patients, perhaps for blood pressure and whatnot, and then you would have an agreed upon process by the providers there that are doing that screening as to what happens next. So how do they collect their data? Is there an electronic record that they put into? And then once they do, how do they actually refer the person who has high blood pressure to the appropriate program or the appropriate provider? And is it a warm handoff? Do they actually go and walk the person over to that provider and hand off the patient? Is it being tracked? And how does that whole system work? And then does the person actually become enrolled in the program? Are they retained in the program for as long as the program goes? And then ultimately, do we see the right kinds of health indicators in terms of, like, say, their blood pressure going down after they've been involved in a particular lifestyle program? Setting up a referral system is a complex thing, especially with existing electronic health record systems in place, oftentimes involving various departments of a THO. And so just helping to coordinate and organize all of that is its own feat. In terms of evaluating how well it's going, we want to see people being asked about certain conditions or screened for certain conditions on a regular basis. And then we want them to be offered a referral to a program in a systematic way. And then finally, from that point, we want to see a high number of those folks actually enrolling in whatever program or treatment plan they might have. So you want to be able to look at those various points along the pathway in order to be able to monitor how well your program is working and be able to meet with your team and say, gosh, we see a big drop-off between the people that we screen and we refer and then the people who actually enroll in the program. So there's a gap somewhere there where a lot of people are dropping off and not enrolling. How can we improve that? What's actually happening there? And that's where you can really kind of investigate and try something different. So that's an example of that. we know that an environmental change is working because it is impacting the population that you focused on in the way that you expected it to. For instance, if a community gets a new basketball hoop, and we see a lot more people in the community using that hoop than was happening prior to the installation, and we can observe that over time, then we know that people are getting more physical activity. And so what we might want to do is just observe for maybe 5 days straight at a certain time of day, how many people are using the court, both before the installation of it and afterwards. And we would say that this many more people are actually getting physical activity as a result of that. Or maybe it could be open gym hours at a school gym, or any number of other ways of creating a space for people to do that kind of thing.